Welcome to Headstones and Microphones, where we use AI to step into the past through a researched, first-person simulation of history's most interesting people. I am your host, Calvin. While we've added some creative storytelling, our goal is to inspire your own study of these fascinating lives. Now, let's meet our guest. I am absolutely thrilled today. We are sitting down with a master of suspense, a giant of the golden age of television, and the man who invited us all to cross over into another dimension. For those who may somehow not know who you are you?
Hi, Calvin. I'm Rod Serling. Most folks know me as the fellow in the black and white suit standing in the shadows, narrating the strange and unusual tales of the Twilight Zone. I spent my life as a writer, a dramatist, and a bit of a professional provocateur when it came to television standards.
A legend. Let's go back to the beginning. When and where were you born?
I arrived on Christmas Day, 1924, in Syracuse, New York. Quite a Christmas present for my parents, wouldn't you say?
A Christmas baby. What was your given name at birth?
Just Rodman Edward Serling.
Is there a story behind your birth name?
Not a particularly long one, though I always liked the weight of Rodman. It felt like a name that belonged on a typewriter ribbon.
What was your hometown like growing up?
We moved to Binghamton when I was young, and that is where my heart truly belongs. It was a wonderful, quintessential American town. I spent my summers at Recreation Park riding the carousel. That park actually inspired one of my favorite episodes later in life, a little piece called Walking Distance. It was a place of safety and imagination.
That sounds idyllic. What was your family life like?
Very supportive. My father, Samuel, was a grocer and later a butcher. My mother, Esther, was wonderful. I had an older brother, Robert, who was a fantastic writer himself. He specialized in aviation. We were a close-knit, talkative Jewish family. There was always a lot of conversation in our house.
What kind of kid were you?
Oh, I was a chatterbox. I was the kid who never stopped talking. I had a massive imagination. I would spend hours performing for anyone who would listen, acting out stories or repeating dialogue I'd heard. I was energetic, maybe a bit restless, and always looking for a stage.
Did you have any big fears back then?
Like many children, the dark held its share of mysteries, but most of my real fears developed later, during the war. As a child, I think I was more afraid of being bored or being ignored than anything supernatural.
What did you dream of becoming as a child?
Believe it or not, I didn't start out wanting to be a writer. I wanted to be an entertainer, a performer. I loved the limelight.
What were some of your favorite activities in school?
I was very active in public speaking and the debate team. I loved anything that involved language and persuasion. I also enjoyed sports, though I wasn't the biggest fellow on the field.
What was your first job?
Aside from helping out with the family business, my first real life-changing job was serving in the Army during World War II as a paratrooper. It wasn't a job in the traditional sense, but it was the first time I was out in the world with a heavy responsibility.
Was there a moment where you realized you were different from everyone else?
I think it was during the war. Seeing the randomness of life and death in the Pacific, it changed my perspective. I realized I had a voice that needed to process these things through writing. I saw the world with a bit more intensity than some of my peers.
What's a decision that changed everything for you, but felt small at the time?
Entering a scriptwriting contest for a radio station while I was in college at Antioch. I didn't think much of it, but winning that opened the door to the realization that people actually wanted to hear what I had to say.
What was your biggest break?
That would be Patterns in 1955. It was a teleplay about the ruthless world of corporate business. It was performed live on Kraft Television Theater, and the reaction was unlike anything I'd seen. It won an Emmy, and suddenly, I was the angry young man of television.
Before that success, what were your biggest struggles?
Rejection. Plain and simple. I have a basement full of rejection slips from my early years in Cincinnati. I was writing constantly, radio scripts, commercials, and most of it went nowhere. We were broke, living on almost nothing, but I just couldn't stop typing.
Did you ever consider quitting?
Never. I was too driven, or maybe just too stubborn. I felt like if I stopped writing, I'd disappear.
Were there any daily habits or routines essential to your success?
I was a creature of the dictaphone. I found that I could write much faster by speaking my scripts into a recorder and having them transcribed later. It allowed the dialogue to feel more natural, more like a real conversation. I also smoked quite a bit. It was a nervous habit that kept the gears turning, though I wouldn't recommend it now.
What job would you have had if fame never happened?
I likely would have stayed in academia. I loved teaching. Later in my life, I spent a lot of time teaching at Ithaca College. I loved the exchange of ideas with students.
What was your life like before fame?
It was a scramble. Carol and I were just trying to make ends meet. I was writing anything for anyone just to pay the rent. But there was a certain fire in that struggle that I always remembered.
How did relationships change after success?
You certainly find out who your friends are. But more than that, I found myself constantly in battle with network censors. My relationship with the suits was always a bit, let's say, combative.
Did fame bring happiness?
It brought opportunity. It gave me a platform to talk about things like prejudice, war, and humanity under the guise of science fiction. That brought me a great deal of professional satisfaction.
What was the downside?
The loss of anonymity and the constant pressure to top yourself. When you create something like the Twilight Zone, people expect every single thing you write to be a masterpiece. That's a heavy coat to wear.
What misconceptions did people have about you?
People thought I was as dark and somber as the narrator they saw on screen. In reality, I loved a good joke. I loved my family, and I enjoyed being normal whenever I could. I wasn't always lurking in a fifth dimension.
What was your darkest moment?
My time in the Philippines during the war. The loss of friends and the sheer brutality of it stayed with me forever. It's why so many of my stories involve soldiers or the trauma of the past.
What past regrets did you carry?
I often spoke about the regret of not being able to do more through my writing. I felt a constant need to fight against social injustice, and sometimes I felt like I was just shouting into the wind against the network's desire for safe programming.
What's something people misunderstood about your life?
Many people didn't realize how much I fought for the rights of writers. I wanted us to be seen as the primary creators of the media.
Tell me about a time when everything went wrong and how you handled it.
Early on, I had scripts that were edited so heavily by sponsors that the original meaning was completely lost. One script about a strike was changed so much it became unrecognizable. I handled it by deciding then and there that I would find a way to write about the truth through allegory, which is how the Twilight Zone was born. If I couldn't talk about a current event directly, I'd set it on Mars.
Did fame and fortune change your life?
It moved us to California and gave us a comfortable life, but I think my core stayed in Binghamton. I was still that talkative kid, just with a bigger audience.
Who had the biggest influence on your life?
My father. He taught me the value of hard work and honesty. And my wife, Carol, she was my anchor and my most trusted critic.
What was life like in your final years?
I stayed very busy. I was writing, doing voiceover work, and teaching. I spent a lot of time at our cottage on Cayuga Lake. It was a quieter time, away from the Hollywood machine.
What were you working on right before you passed away?
I was always writing. I was doing a lot of narrating for various projects and had several scripts in development. I never really put the pen down.
When and where did you pass away?
I passed away on June 28th, 1975, in Rochester, New York. I was only 50 years old.
What happened?
My heart simply gave out. I had undergone a long bypass surgery, but complications arose. I think I had pushed myself very hard for many years.
What's a random fact about you most people have never heard?
I was a very skilled amateur boxer in the Army. I had over 15 bouts. I might have been small, but I was scrappy.
What's the craziest rumor ever told about you?
That I was actually an alien or some sort of ghost myself. People really struggled to separate me from the show.
What was your most unique habit?
I would walk around my yard or my office talking to myself constantly, actually dictating stories to my machine. The neighbors must have thought I was losing my mind.
What was your favorite food?
I was a big fan of a good, simple steak. Nothing fancy.
Did you have a favorite book?
I had a great deal of respect for the works of Hemingway and Fitzgerald. I loved tight, impactful prose.
Any known rivalries?
Mostly with the network censors. I didn't have much time for personal feuds. I was too busy fighting for my scripts.
Tell us a story nobody talks about.
During the war, I was once nearly killed by a falling crate of rations dropped from a plane. It missed me by inches. It was a bizarre, random moment that could have ended it all before I ever wrote a word. Life is full of Twilight Zone moments like that.
What's your funniest behind-the-scenes moment?
Just the absurdity of some of the props. Seeing a grown man in a rubber Canamet suit for To Serve Man trying to eat lunch is a sight you don't forget easily.
Did you ever prank someone?
I enjoyed a good bit of wit, but I was usually the one being teased about my serious narrator persona on set.
What was the most outlandish purchase you made?
I wasn't a very flashy man, but I did enjoy a nice car. I had a gray 1960 Thunderbird that I was quite fond of.
What advice would you give people chasing success?
Write. Every single day. Don't wait for inspiration. Go out and find it with a hammer. And never, ever let someone tell you that your voice doesn't matter.
Rod, this has been incredible. Do you have any closing remarks or stories you'd like to share with our listeners before we sign off?
Just this. We live in a world of shadows and light, and often the things we fear are just reflections of ourselves. Be kind to one another, stay curious, and always keep an eye on the signpost up ahead. Thank you for having me, Calvin. It's been a delight to step back into the light for a moment.
Thank you so much, Rod. What an absolute honour. We've talked about everything from the carousels of Binghamton to the battles with Hollywood soups and the legacy of one of the greatest shows in history. And that wraps up another conversation from Beyond the Grave. Thanks for joining us on the Headstones and Microphones podcast. Remember, legends may die, but their stories never do. Please help spread the word by sharing and following the pod.